He thought it was just a weapon. He thought it couldn't think. Wolverine stepped inside the God Engine and heard it breathe. It spoke in dead languages. It remembered mutants. And it chose Wolverine not to serve, but to evolve. The Avengers were too late. It was already alive. The ground wasn't just shaking, it was humming. Deep beneath the Arctic ice, where no satellite dared to scan, Wolverine dropped through the final level of an ancient shaft carved by hands older than Earth itself. Every wall was laced with metallic veins, pulsing slowly, like arteries in a sleeping beast. Tony's voice crackled in his ear, distorted by distance and interference. "Logan, read me." Nothing. The moment he crossed into the chamber, every signal died. Only his breath echoed. Only his heartbeat counted. He moved forward, claws out, muscles coiled tight. This wasn't alien tech. It was something worse. The Avengers thought this was a machine buried by a war long forgotten. They were wrong. It wasn't buried. It waited. And it didn't call for Stark. It didn't want Thor. It summoned the one being who couldn't die, the one who had felt death claw at him and still kept walking. It summoned Wolverine. He didn't ask why. He didn't argue. Something in his bones told him this wasn't a mission. It was a meeting. The corridor curved like the inside of a living creature. No sharp angles, no cold steel. Everything was too smooth, too natural. He stepped into a massive chamber lit by a dull orange glow, where a single pulsing core hovered midair, like a heart with no body, surrounded by coiling cables that moved slightly too slightly. His instinct screamed, but his legs kept moving. The God Engine didn't start. It was already active, watching, sensing, not through cameras or heat signatures, but through something older, pain. The moment he stepped closer, the hum changed. The cables reached out, not to attack, but to touch. A whisper ran through the air, like rust scraping metal. He remembers. He froze, not because of the voice, but because it wasn't external. It came from inside his head. He growled, "What the hell are you?" The walls didn't answer. The engine did. It flashed with brief images, moments from his past he hadn't even remembered himself. Weapon X, Jean, Xavier's voice, Sabretooth's rage, the adamantium scream in his bones. But it wasn't showing them to him. It was reviewing, like flipping through a manual. Then came the twist. The engine wasn't reacting to his memories. It was matching them. On the wall to his right, symbols lit up. Not English, not Cree, not Skrull, something older. But Wolverine didn't need to translate. He felt what they meant. They were records. Records of others. Creatures like him. Across galaxies. Mutants not born of radiation, but of raw evolution. Cursed with healing, rage, and endless memory. He wasn't the first. He was the last. The engine lowered itself to eye level. Cables wrapped softly around his arms. He didn't flinch. Didn't strike. "You've been waiting," he muttered. "For me." A long pause. Then the voice returned. "You are not the end. You are the restart." Before he could react, a surge of energy raced through the floor, through his boots, into his bones. He dropped to one knee, claws out. Sparks danced off the tips. But there was no attack, no pain, just a transfer. The engine was reading him, measuring him, then adjusting. The lights shifted from orange to white. The hum stopped. Silence hit like a punch. Then it spoke again, this time in words clear and ancient. "You are the template. We begin." Wolverine's claws retracted, not by choice. His body moved on its own. He looked down. His skin shimmered faintly. Veins glowed under his arms, pulsing in sync with the engine. He staggered back. Hell no. But he couldn't run. The room wasn't letting him. The floor reshaped, slowly rising to cradle his feet. He was being integrated. The engine wasn't consuming him. It was building with him. It chose him not because he was strong, not because he was a hero, but because he was the only one who had never truly died. His curse was its code, his trauma its battery. Memories surge again, but this time new ones. Visions of battles in alien skies. Mutants wearing armor like bones. Planets burning with fear of something they couldn't control. Him, or something like him. Then came the most terrifying image of all. His own face, aged, twisted, burned into the control console of a different version of this engine on another world. He had been here before, and he failed. The chamber tightened. Lights flared. The engine screamed. A siren made of language and light. From the ceiling, something descended. A floating sphere of red and gold, carved with spirals that bent gravity. Wolverine reached out without thinking. The moment his fingers touched it, it cracked. Liquid light spilled out and formed around his hand. Not armor, not tech, a claw, new, shimmering, alive. It moved when he thought. It vibrated when he breathed. And when he slashed it through the air, it left a scar of frozen time. Not a weapon, a thought claw. Wolverine looked up. The engine was quiet again, but the silence was different. It wasn't asleep. It was watching. Not just him, the Earth, scanning for others. And something deep inside him, something buried under layers of rage and memory, whispered, "You are the first, but not the last." Behind him, far above, the ice cracked. Stark's voice returned. Thor's hammer echoed down the shaft. Backup was coming, but Wolverine didn't turn around. He looked into the center of the God Engine, and for the first time in his life, he saw purpose. Not healing, not fighting, not surviving, becoming. The walls weren't walls anymore. They breathed. They shifted. They whispered his name. Wolverine stood frozen, his claws retracted, his pulse sinking with the low thrum of the chamber. The engine pulsed like it was alive, and not just alive, but dreaming through his memories, learning from every scar, every kill, every resurrection. Then the engine began to speak, not with words, but through visions, rushing into Logan's mind like a tsunami of ancient truths. He was standing on a world that wasn't Earth. Red skies, 3 suns, the ground made of bone, creatures that looked like him, but taller, older, twisted by time. They fought armies of steel. Their claws weren't weapons. They were keys. And every death they suffered woke something in the planet beneath them. The God Engine had been here too, not as a machine, but as witness. It had watched entire species rise and fall, trying to kill what they didn't understand. Mutation. Wolverine dropped to one knee, grabbing his head as the visions burned through his mind. He wasn't seeing the past. He was remembering it, like it was buried in his DNA, waiting for the right trigger. The engine wasn't built for humans. It was built for mutants, designed not to destroy them, but to understand, evolve, and replicate them. A soft hum rose around him, a new light, blue and gold. Dozens of circular panels opened on the walls. They weren't weapons. They were archives, each one lit up with the shape of a different being. Alien, mutant, hybrid. Some had claws like his, others wings. Some walked on stars. Some dissolved into dust and reformed with thought. But all of them were connected. He wasn't special. He was next. The floor lit beneath his feet, forming symbols that moved when he moved. The engine was reacting to him, not as a threat, but as a puzzle. He walked forward, hand brushing the edge of a console. It opened like skin splitting gently, revealing a floating sphere of light. Inside it, a face. His face, but older, different, marked with symbols, scarred with time, wearing armor grown from bone and machine, eyes like stars. He stepped back. "That ain't me." The engine replied instantly, its voice inside his chest. "It was. It will be." The gene remembers. Suddenly, his claws snapped out without command, but they weren't metal anymore. They shimmered with light, flickering between adamantium and something else, something more fluid. His entire arm pulsed with living circuitry, not embedded tech, but grown, like vines of metal adapting to bone. He roared in defiance and drove his claws into the nearest wall. It should have shattered. Instead, it absorbed the strike, and from the impact, a memory spilled. Jean, screaming, reaching for him as she died. Again, always again. He stumbled back. "You're using me," he growled, feeding on it. The chamber dimmed, then brightened. Another pulse of thought. We do not feed. We archive. You are the last survivor of our cycle. You are proof. They cannot erase the bloodline. Dozens of images flooded his mind now. Mutants killed across galaxies. Some tortured, some worshipped, some betrayed by their own. Across each memory, one thing remained consistent: fear. The universe had always feared mutation, feared evolution it could not control. And the God Engine? It had once tried to protect them. Then it had been shut down, buried, hidden by those who feared what it might do next. Now it wanted resurrection. Logan's teeth clenched as he stood again, breathing heavy. He had lived through torture. He had seen Earth crumble, friends fall, timelines break. But this was different. This wasn't a war. It was a genetic memory. And the engine wasn't showing him the past to teach him. It was activating it. Another console opened. This one showed a planet, Earth. Then another, Mars. Then dozens. Planets with dormant gene codes. All waiting. All connected to him. The engine whispered again. They will awaken if you survive the trial. He didn't speak. He didn't move. The floor split open beneath him, not to swallow him, but to elevate him. He rose into a chamber above, where the ceiling unfolded like an eye. Inside hovered a core of pure code, not metal, not light. Language, organic software. It rotated, scanning his soul. Wolverine braced, claws ready. The core launched into him. Not a beam, a memory. Suddenly, he was in space, falling, crashing through burning ships. The body was his. The mind wasn't. He fought like a god, claws shredding machines that screamed in binary. Then he was on Earth, but not his Earth. Cities ruled by sentinels, mutants in chains. He broke every one, burned the towers. And at the center of it all, the engine, hovering above Earth, watching him rewrite history. Then black. He collapsed. And when he opened his eyes, the core was gone. Inside his body, something was different. He looked at his hand, flexed. The light pulsed under his skin like it belonged there now. The engine had stopped humming. It didn't need to anymore. He was carrying it. It had transferred part of itself into him. Not to command, not to control, to continue. A single message rang through his skull. One of many. Activate the next. Above him, the ceiling retracted. The stars looked back. Earth was waiting. But so were others. And the engine knew their names. So did he. He was no longer just Logan. He was the memory of mutants the universe tried to forget. And now he remembered all of them. He wasn't just weaponized. He was witness. And the next mutant was already stirring. The transmission hit Stark's HUD like a slap from the past. Coordinates burned onto the screen. Coordinates no one had used since the Cold War ended. Then the signal repeated, in a voice that shouldn't exist. Wolverine, but layered, digitized, amplified by something else. Thor caught the signal mid-flight. "He's calling for us," he said grimly. "No," Stark replied. "He's not calling. He's warning." Within minutes, the Quinjet was diving toward a frozen wasteland. Storm clouds split at the sight of Mjolnir's lightning. Doctor Strange appeared on the edge of reality, stepping from a tear in space just as Hulk landed hard, shaking the ground to dust. But when they reached the chamber's breach, the atmosphere changed. Tony's sensors scrambled. Magic fizzled in Strange's hands. Even Thor looked unsure. "Why is the Earth vibrating?" he muttered. They descended. The walls weren't stone anymore. They were breathing, shifting in patterns. Strange's eyes narrowed. This structure, it's alive, but not biologically. It's sentient technology bound to memory. I've only seen this level of design in dying stars. "No doors, no locks," Hulk grunted, pressing a fist against the outer shell. "It wants us to enter." Stark hesitated. "Or it wants to keep something in." Inside, Wolverine waited, not crouched in shadow, not bloodied from battle, but standing dead center in the main chamber, surrounded by light that moved like it knew him. Cables coiled around his arms, not restraining him, but reacting to every micro-expression. His eyes weren't the same. The color shifted, metal, then flame, then something unreadable. His claws shimmered, almost pulsing. He wasn't healing from wounds. He wasn't even breathing hard. "You're late," he said without turning. Stark stepped forward. "We tracked the spike. You set off a planetary alert. You think we're just gonna ignore that?" Wolverine didn't answer. Behind him, the God Engine stirred. Massive conduits pulled inward. A low vibration filled the air like a choir of whispers in reverse. Thor raised Mjolnir. "What have you awakened, Logan?" Strange stepped between them. "That's not Logan anymore." Wolverine turned, slow and deliberate. "Still me. Just more. You're synced to it," Strange said. "It's inside you." "No," Wolverine said. "I'm inside it." The Avengers flinched as the walls shifted again. The chamber folded open, revealing the ancient archive of mutant records, glowing like celestial tombstones. Tony's HUD screamed with warnings. "This thing is scanning global DNA signatures. It's looking for matches. It's waking up every hidden X gene it can find." "Shut it down," Thor growled. "You try," Logan said. Hulk stepped forward. Wolverine didn't move, just extended a hand, and suddenly Hulk staggered. Not from impact, from resonance. The engine had identified his mutations, and it was replicating frequencies to hold him still. Not violently, like it understood him better than Bruce did. Hulk backed up, confused. Not angry, not broken, just unsure. Wolverine finally stepped forward. This place was built by something that knew what we were. Not just mutants, evolutionaries, carriers of change. They tried to protect us, then they were erased. Stark's voice cut through. "So what? You bring their church back online? Their temple?" "It's not a temple," Logan said. "It's a seed, and it's growing." A mechanical bloom emerged from a ceiling. Thousands of interlocked drones forming a sphere. Holograms projected in all directions. Earth, Mars, mutant activity flaring like beacons. And at the center of every flare, his name. "You don't get to decide this," Tony said sharply. "We didn't vote on a resurrection." Wolverine's claws snapped out, cleaner, sharper, not entirely solid. "I didn't come here to ask permission," he said. "I came here because the engine called me, because I can survive what it needed to remember." "You uploaded something," Strange said. "You didn't just touch it. You linked. You're becoming part of the memory network." "I'm the carrier now," Logan said. "It needs a host. One who remembers everything and dies for nothing." "You're risking the entire planet," Stark snapped. "What happens if this engine decides everyone needs to evolve at once? What if it flips a switch in every mutant's brain across Earth?" Wolverine didn't blink. "Then they'll stop being hunted." A long silence held the room in a chokehold. Thor turned to Strange. "Can we extract him?" Strange sighed. "We could try, but that would kill the engine. And maybe him." "Then we try," Stark said coldly. He lifted his repulsor. Wolverine was already gone. The light behind Tony exploded. Logan moving faster than any sensor could predict. He wasn't teleporting. He was phasing through space like the engine let him cheat physics. Claws slashed, not to wound, but to mark. A bright X burned across Iron Man's chest plate, forcing Stark back, his suit locking into emergency override. Hulk roared, trying to charge. The chamber responded by warping the floor beneath him, turning solid ground to a magnetic field that folded his mass into a kneeling stance. Thor hurled Mjolnir, but the hammer missed. Logan's claws scraped the air just once, and the wind bent. The hammer curved mid-flight and struck the far wall. It never touched Wolverine. Strange raised a barrier. Wolverine stopped in front of it, not to break it, but to talk. "Don't make me stop you," Logan said, eyes now burning with archived flame. "You've merged with something ancient," Strange warned. But the mind inside, it doesn't belong to you. No, Logan whispered, but it remembers me, across lifetimes, across worlds. I don't know how, but I was always part of this. Maybe I came from this. The chamber darkened. Above them, the ceiling opened. Starlight poured in. One final message echoed from the engine, now in the voice of 1,000 mutants layered together. Protocol broken. Guardians arrived. Phase 2 begins. The walls collapsed inward, not in destruction, but in transformation. The engine wasn't a base anymore. It was preparing for launch. Wolverine turned back one last time. Don't follow me. You can't leave Earth like this, Stark warned. I'm not leaving Earth, Logan replied. I'm activating it. And with a shudder, the engine rose, lifting from the ice like it had wings no one could see. Wolverine disappeared inside the light, and the Avengers were left in silence, staring at the sky. He didn't just awaken the engine, he became it. Wolverine floated in silence, suspended in light that pulsed with ancient memory. There was no sky, no floor, just endless code moving like smoke around his body. He didn't feel cold, he didn't feel pain, but he could feel himself changing. The engine wasn't just repairing him, it was rebuilding him. Every cell inside his body shimmered, vibrating with power that came from outside reality. His adamantium claws twitched, but they were no longer solid metal. They shifted between metal, plasma, and pure data. Thought and blade fused into one. He tried to speak, but no sound came. Only memory. It used his brain like a processor, uploading everything he had ever known, then rewriting what it needed. Every battle, every death, every scream he tried to forget was now stored in the engine's living archive, and it was learning from them. It didn't erase his pain, it optimized it. The chamber around him pulsed again. Liquid nanostructures spun around his arms, crawling like vines, reshaping his skin. Not armor, not tech, evolution. The engine didn't believe in weapons. It believed in adaptation. His skeleton reformed itself, not replacing the adamantium, but folding it with something else. Some alien compound that responded to thought. With a blink, he could soften his body into mist. With rage, he could turn his fists into gravity-dense claws that broke through time-space. He didn't need to heal anymore. He regenerated before the damage finished happening. The chamber shifted. Panels displayed faces. Other mutants, some dead, some living, some not yet born. Their genes called out to him like coordinates. The engine was scanning the universe, and Wolverine was its beacon. It wasn't choosing a leader. It was forging a key. The Avengers had feared this transformation, but they couldn't see what he saw now. Earth was only one of many battlegrounds. The war wasn't against humans. It was against something older, a force that hunted mutation across the stars. Something that had once destroyed the engine's creators. And now it was coming back. The transformation finished with a pulse of silence. Then a voice filled the chamber, not from the engine. From within him. You are the template. Others will follow. Prepare them. Wolverine opened his eyes. They weren't his anymore. They were ours. He stepped onto the chamber floor, if it could be called that, and flexed his hands. The new claws emerged not with sound, but with pressure. Reality bent slightly with each movement. The engine didn't want a soldier. It wanted a signal. And now, Wolverine wasn't just a survivor. He was the first of the next generation. A walking archive of rage, hope, and memory, built for a future Earth wasn't ready for. But ready or not, they were going to need him. Because across the stars, something had noticed the engine was alive again. And this time, it wasn't going to wait. The stars bent around the God Engine as it hovered above the atmosphere. No fire, no thrusters, just motion born from will. It didn't burn fuel. It used memory. And inside, Wolverine stood at the center of a chamber that didn't rotate, didn't hum, it thought. Every wire pulsed with a question. But there was no voice anymore, because the engine no longer needed to speak. He understood it now. It hadn't been designed to fight, not even to evolve. Its real function was to choose. It chose survivors, the broken, the buried, the ones too stubborn to die. It didn't want to save Earth. It wanted to wake it up. Data surged through his veins, not digital, but something deeper. Every mutant across the planet glowed like a pulse on the map. Some were already changing, not visibly, not violently, but subtly, their senses sharpening, their thoughts aligning. Something ancient was stirring inside them, and it was because he existed. Wolverine wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a carrier signal. The engine had rewritten him as a living transmitter, a walking code, pulsing with ancestral memory of species long extinct. His heartbeat was no longer just his own. It was layered, amplified, synced to billions of genetic echoes across the cosmos. He looked down through the transparent floor. Earth floated below like a marble waiting to crack. Behind him, a shape emerged, not machine, not mutant. A reflection of himself, but stripped of identity, blank. Just the architecture of evolution, pure potential. The engine was preparing to create more like him, unless he stopped it. His hand trembled. For the first time in his long life, Logan didn't know what side he was on. He turned to the center. "You're not a weapon," he muttered. "You're a mind." A low vibration answered him, not in denial, not in threat. Just agreement. It didn't want war. It wanted continuity. But continuity required choice. Wolverine stepped forward, and the floor lit up. One panel, one final decision: activate or disconnect. Earth would survive either way. But one path would ignite a chain reaction across the stars, a signal mutants everywhere might not be able to silence. Evolution wouldn't wait. It would arrive now. The other path? Silence. Wolverine clenched his fist. The engine waited. Then he lifted his hand and didn't press either option. Instead, he spoke. "If this world's gonna change, it has to choose it." The engine paused, and then something impossible happened. It agreed. The chamber dimmed. The light softened. And slowly, the signal narrowed, focused onto one single beam of data. It returned to him. The engine folded in on itself, shrinking, compressing into a core no bigger than his chest. It embedded itself in his body, silent, sleeping, waiting for his choice. He dropped from the sky like a ghost, landing in silence on a cliff overlooking a city that didn't know how close it came to rewriting itself. He stood still, watched, felt the pulse of life below. He wasn't here to lead. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to remember. Because memory was the oldest power of all. And the engine would awaken again, only when Earth was ready to remember who it really was. Wolverine turned away from the city and walked into the dawn. Not a savior, not a mutant, just the first echo of something bigger, and the last line Earth would ever forget.